So I'm like ridiculously excited to be here. TEDxWaldenPond. How rich is that? How exciting. Walden Pond, Concord, Massachusetts, the birthplace of so many amazing historical and social movements of our time. You know, I think about the Patriot Minutemen from Lexington and from Concord, men and women who were so willing to stand for what they believed in and to stand for their ideals that they were willing to give their lives for it. It's really profound when you think about that. And then fast forward 70 more years beyond that, and right here in the woods at Walden Pond, the birthplace, really the birthplace of the Transcendentalist movement, that radical notion that there's a oneness or a unity between God, man, nature. This is a place that's ripe with social and intellectual movements, and I have a belief. I believe that those of us who are here tonight participating and enjoying this event, TEDxWaldenPond, are another era of ushering in a new world of what's possible in our communities. And here's the thing, guys. I believe what's possible is that each and every one of us can begin being responsible for the creation of conscious communities. So what do I mean by that, conscious communities? You know, I went to TED.com and looked up, searched the keyword for consciousness before I did my talk, because I know that that word is used in radically different ways in the fields of science or medicine or philosophy or spirituality. That word has a lot of different meanings, what it means for someone to be conscious. And I really highly don't recommend, if ever of you want to do a TED Talk someday, that you go to TED.com for your information, because what you'll find are, you know, a vast array of incredibly intelligent people doing fabulous oratories on the topic that you are preparing to speak for. Not a good idea. Anyway, so let me tell you how I'm going to use the word for the phrase consciousness or conscious as I talk about conscious communities. I'm going to use it from a metaphysical orientation to mean the field inside of which one lives and moves and has their being that is made up through our beliefs, our thoughts, our perceptions, and our ways of being. The consciousness is not that which you can see, but what gives rise to seeing. Not how you're seeing, not what you are seeing, but how you are seeing. And then this word communities. I love the Latin root word of the word community. It means communitas, the Latin root word, communitas. Com meaning with, and muni meaning shared experiences that link us together, and tatus meaning small or intimate. So you see inside of that definition that our conscious communities are intimate groups inside of which we are sharing our experiences, linking together in our experiences through that which we believe, that which gives us meaning and purpose. I believe that the participation and the experience inside of conscious communities is one inside of which your highest sense of self is mirrored back to you, and you can see yourself in other people. And in fact, they're communities inside of which your vulnerabilities are protected and your strengths are celebrated. I'm blessed to participate in a wonderful conscious community in my own life. Just to use an example of this, I'm a member of a 12-person mastermind group. And a mastermind group could loosely be defined as a spiritually oriented goals group. It's a group of 12 women that get together every other week and talk about what we're up to, what our goals are, what our plans are, and what we're dealing with in our lives, and then to get feedback from the other members and also to hold one another in prayer. So while that is a really lovely experience in conscious community, what makes this group more unique, I believe, and more interesting is that we are 12 women from 11 different communities, 3 different countries, 7 of whom are black, 5 are white, a handful are gay, the rest are straight. 2 are married, 2 are mothers, 1 is a single mom. So you can see we don't really share any demographic similarity whatsoever. We come from all fields of professional endeavor, from music and the arts, corporate America, the nonprofit sector, business owners. So we come from every single area of life and walks of life. But what links us together, what binds us together, is our shared belief and our shared perception in the power of like minds coming together to raise one another up. You know, I'm really passionate and proud that TED took on this global initiative today. Today, October 13th, 2012, is a day that TED took on a global initiative to talk about what's possible in our communities around the world. And I think that's really an important question because in many ways, our communities are failing us, aren't they? Let's look at just a couple statistics to back that up. Wonderful TED Talk by Dr. Brené Brown from her research at the University of Houston, her talk on vulnerability. She teaches that we are the most overweight, over-medicated, and addicted generation in history. Thanks, Brené. I really could have lived my whole life without ever knowing that fact about our generation. Even more troubling statistic about our younger generation, ages 15 to 24. The number one disability in that age group is depression and substance abuse. Mental illness, the number one disability. And then lastly, also about our younger generation, that same age group, the second and third leading causes of death in that generation, in that age group, is homicide and suicide. So I believe that what these numbers represent are largely, the failure of our community that they represent, largely have to do with a lack of belonging, a lack of meaning, a lack of something, a lack of being connected to something greater than yourself. And in fact, a lack of sense that my life matters, that I am intimately connected to a group of people around me that mirror back to me my greatest sense of self. The 19th century philosopher Emile Durkheim, a French sociologist, wrote about this quite eloquently. He coined the phrase anomie to talk about the discontented sense of alienation that people in communities feel when they are disengaged, when the communities have had a loss of focus on meaning and on values. Durkheim wrote about that in response to the Industrial Revolution back in the 19th century, and he said that he believed that the shift from the communal good and the communal experience to the individual strivings, egoic strivings of people are what gave rise to this rise of anomie, this lack of belonging, lack of meaning, lack of purpose. In fact, Durkheim taught that one of the most important principles for human beings, one of our most important tasks of our humanity, is to grow in consciousness, to transcend the day-to-day, the everydayness, the day-to-day struggles that we go through, the ordinariness of our lives, to transcend that to the experience of what he called the sacred. Experiencing the sacred, the sense of oneness and peace and connection that one has the opportunity to explore. You know, Durkheim wrote about those things at the advent of the industrial era, and I have to wonder, what would it be like if he were alive today in the information age? When each and every one of us is so always, constantly plugged in, and yet so very rarely actually genuinely connected. So I believe that there's a new era upon us, a new era of possibility. That there's a fabric of meaning that we can begin to connect with in our lives. I love the words of a contemporary American philosopher. His name is Jacob Needleman, and he says that we are a culture that is awash in material goods and yet impoverished with time. Impoverished with meaningful time, time that feeds the soul and stimulates the mind and opens up the heart. So we're a culture awash in material goods, but impoverished with time. So as we look at this opportunity now. I know everyone is so busy. You know, everybody's got things going on. But what we do because we're so busy is we look to something out here to feed us and to nurture us and to perhaps give us pleasure or maybe even to numb our pain, rather than looking within to give us our sense of meaning, our sense of purpose, our happiness, our satisfaction, our connection. But you know, I'm not really talking to you just about ideas and concepts. I'm really talking to you about my own life. 15 years ago, I was one of those people that I just described to you, the most overweight, over-medicated people of our time. No, I wasn't that. But I was one of those people that was just always busy and working a full-time job, starting a business, playing sports, taking classes, teaching workshops. I was just always on the run and going and doing this and doing that. I was so busy, in fact, and out all the time that my landlord used to say to me, "Jackie, I think you rent this apartment so your cat has someplace to live." And that was my experience in life until things started to happen to my body that I didn't quite understand. I started actually breaking down, and having all kinds of illnesses and injuries that I, A, didn't understand, and B, weren't really healing very well. So I took it upon myself. I've got to get this figured out. And I decided I would go both the traditional medicine and the complementary medicine route. And my primary care physician did some tests and figured out. And what he said was, "Jackie, you know, it looks like your adrenal system is really overtaxed, overloaded, and perhaps even shutting down. You need to slow down. You need to get some rest." But my beloved acupuncturist wasn't quite as gentle and kind. This wise old man looked at me and said, "Jackie, look, I know you got a lot going on in your life, but here's the thing. If you keep living the way that you're living and doing what you're doing, you're probably not going to live very long. Here's the thing. You have a lot of energy, but you have the life force energy, the vitality, the life force chi of an 80-year-old woman." Well, let me tell you, that got my attention. And I recognized that I really needed to go within, and rather than continuing to live my life through external means and what was going to bring me satisfaction or achievement or success, and it was all good, I was not an unhappy person, I had to go within to find not what there is for me to do, but who is there for me to be. What is my why? That brings us to really the fundamental question of my talk. How do we begin creating conscious communities in a largely unconscious world? And I believe that good question, as with all good questions, can't be answered in the head. They must be felt in the heart. So I want to invite you to envision with me now, to take that question into your heart and imagine what our world will be like when we all start making the shift from external conditions and what we're doing out there to consciousness and how we're experiencing ourselves in here. Rather than, the mind-numbing busyness that dizzies our days, so we go from one thing to another, to actually shift, to ask that pertinent question, what is it that I'm here to do? Right here at Walden Pond, Thoreau, in his book Nature, wrote, "Men lead lives of quiet desperation, and so many of them die with their songs still in them." The question for you to answer as you shift from circumstance to consciousness is, what's the song of my heart? And how will I deliver it in this world? And as you make that shift, you'll find you can't do that unless you make this next important shift, and that is this. Moving from this frantic busyness and overwhelm to a sense of presence, being fully present in the now moment. Recognizing that no matter how much you have to do in the world, all that there ever really is to do is what you are doing right here, right now. And when you make that shift, it immediately gives rise to the third shift that I believe we need to make as a culture, and that is that we need to shift from the sense of alienated disconnect to this sense of oneness and unity. It is who we are. It is what we've come here to do, come here to experience. This sense, going back to the transcendentalists, this radical notion that we are all one, God, nature, and humanity. So I believe that those of us here tonight at TEDxWaldenPond and those of us in the TED community worldwide, as we come together and make this agreement that that is what we are here for. See, folks, it doesn't take all of us. It just takes enough of us to have that impact on our culture, have that impact on the consciousness that we all are, to make this shift, to begin ushering in a new world of possibility for our lives and for the world around us. That's my mission, it's my promise, it's my passion, and I hope that each and every one of you will join me. Thank you.